Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Smart Flip, the Phone Flippers podcast. And we are definitely growing this thing. We've gotten a ton of positive feedback from you guys. And today, guys, I have with me Eric Riz. How do you say your last name, dude?
Rizzolvato, you got it.
Zolvato. Got it. Cool. So I have Eric with us today. Me and Eric have talked back and forth for years at this point, and I wanted to bring him on because he's definitely seen a thing or two in the industry. Scaled up, scaled down, scaled up again, scaled down again. So I'm going to ask him a little bit about that stuff today, and I think it'll be a good one. Like I said, Eric's been around for a while at this point, and yeah, so let's rock and roll, dude. Dude, let's start off
All
with
right,
going over yourself a little bit. Where are you located? What do you do? Plug your business a little bit. If you want to buy from some other
yeah,
resellers that are watching this.
sure. So I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I've lived here for since 2017. I started flipping electronics in general summer of 2021, like June, July. So we're going on our fourth year right now. And I will say that, yeah, my business took off very, very quickly. Like it turned into something that I was not anticipating at all, very, very fast. And right now I kind of feel like I've been playing catch up the past couple of years. Like I've just been like falling over my feet, like trying to get some footing underneath me while I'm like experiencing all these aspects of business that I've never experienced before. And I was calling myself a business, but I was like, now I understand. I'm like, dude, no. I was just like surviving and happened to also got lucky and was like making a bunch of money. Um, so, but you come to realize very quickly that that's just that making money is not being like business. Like just because you can make some money does not mean you're a businessman. Does not mean you own a business. There's a lot more that goes into that, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, so I started out literally just Facebook Marketplace, buying and reselling anything I could buy on there. I did gaming consoles, iPads, phones. I would buy cracked stuff and repair it and then flip it back on there. I did weights at one point, like anything that I saw was able to be resold for a higher amount of money, I would buy. And at that time, I think I was probably doing about 1,500 $1,000 to $1,500 a week gross. No ads, strictly just out there driving around picking up stuff. And then I remember chatting with you for the first time, and it was like, all right, well, how do you not work as hard,
Yeah, yeah. That's where
right?
everybody
Like,
kind of gets to,
how do you?
right?
Yes, I remember. How do you do less? Like, are you doing less work? And I'm like, no, I'm doing a lot of work right now. And I probably even had the mindset where I was just like, or I'll just work harder and like do more. And now I'm like complete virtual opposite. I'm just like, I don't want to be involved in anything unless I have to be. So it's like if my brain or whatever information I have is not needed, then you don't need me. I was like, please, please, please do not call me. Uh, I tell my VA all the time. I love him to death, and we chat all the time. But he'll be like, he's like, I get to bother you more now, boss. I'm like, no, you don't. Actually, you can bother me less. So, but yeah, so I think there's a lot to be learned on that ground floor. I use every aspect that I learned strictly running no ads, strictly just doing cold calls or like reach outs on Facebook and Craigslist. That I recommend that every person starts off doing.
Yeah.
Um, I think if it wasn't for that and that tenacity that put me in the car driving around for 8, 10 hours a day picking up stuff, if I had not done that, I don't think I would have been able to weather the storm that came the next 3 years. So,
I mean, it's true. So, I mean, that's one thing I had to come to a realization with later on as we were scaling out and helping people. Um, was that part right there was I didn't do so. I scaled up without reach outs at all. Like I never did that in the beginning. Like it was all free ads whenever that was a thing, right? Like the marketplace ads and whenever they would stick and you wouldn't get banned and stuff like that. Like that offer up, let go, all of those apps, and we would just post ads, and that was how we did it. And Craigslist, of course. And I never did reach outs in the beginning. I hit my first $10,000 profit month on ads and Facebook ads alone. And that was it.
nice.
So I came from like almost like the complete opposite side, right? So a couple years later, it was actually about 2 years ago now. Matt Shirley joined my team as a console coach, and all he did was reach outs.
Mm.
I was like, okay, and then so I was like, just teach my students how to do it. I don't want any aspect of that, whatever. I have my thing. I got inbound happening all the time with Facebook and Google. I'm good, you know. And then, my students started posting, and they were like, yeah, I just scored this, meta quest and made, this. And I was like, oh. And then they started posting rooms full of crap. And I was like, what is happening? And it was 100% reach outs on that one too.
Nice.
So, I mean, that's kind of whenever I started looking back, and I was like, all right, I missed that part. I got to go back and relearn because I totally just skipped over it.
Yeah.
And I just became an ads expert because, I was addicted to just inbound, and it was nice, So I went the total opposite way that most people find the game, Like David never even taught reach outs, right? Like he just ads, Craigslist ads was the way.
You're right. Yeah.
Like me, Aaron, and the rest of us were the ones that kind of dove into the other places. But dude, let me ask, so like, what was that like aha moment whenever you realized you could scale this thing? Like, what was that moment for you?
It was when I started running ads, and when I started to spend a little bit more, like started out $10, $15 a day, something like that. And then eventually I was like, okay, well, like it's going well. So like, let's spend some more. Like $45 a day, then 50. And then when I was at $50 a day, I was getting a ton of leads coming in, and I was closing every single day. Then I started finding repeat customers, individuals that would bring me stock on a regular basis, even if it was, even if it was just once a month, it doesn't matter. And then I started doing some business with like stores that I would sell to, and then they would sell me stuff. And when I started to realize, I'm like, wait, like the more I put out, whether it's me going to a store to talk to somebody or putting our business out there through leads, posting stuff on Instagram, like whatever it might be, there's all of these different ways to generate leads. And the more leads that you can generate, the more opportunity you have. The more opportunity you have, and more devices you end up closing over time if you just look at the percentages. And when I started regularly doing high volume every single, whether it's revenue, profit, however you want to look at it, devices, when I started generating that on a repeat basis, month after month after month, that's when I was like, okay, like this can be something big. When it got to the point where I didn't even know how much I was making, I was just like, okay, I think I just made $4,000 today. I was like, let's just keep going. And I would watch like the cycles of the year, like, okay, like November, new phone comes out, iPhone 13 was phenomenal launch for me, but the next couple of years sucked. But then even just watching the market, like, okay, these new phones come out, then what happens? People start selling their old phones. And some of them will do the trade-ins for the credit, but some of them know that that's not money. That some of them know that that's just a credit on their account, and they want cash. And they understand that like they can take less. So they don't ask you stupid questions like, well, why can't you give me $1,000 for my iPhone 8? Because it's not worth that much. That's just what Verizon is giving you for credit. And so it was kind of at that point that I started looking at things differently. I was like, okay, well, I'm building relationships now. These relationships are allowing me to either get more devices or get a higher price for the devices that I'm selling, whatever it might be. I've had relationships where I have buyers that would give me money in advance, prepaying. So I was like, okay, well, this helps me get stuff fast. I just started kind of seeing the pieces, and I understood. I was like, all right, well, I don't know what all these pieces mean, but I do know that they go together. And I do know that when they go together, that means we're going to make more money. And so in the beginning, all that was just spending more money on ads. That was scaling for me. It was just spending more money on ads. And we've gotten up to, I think, $200 a day is the most we've spent on Facebook and Instagram. Right now we're at 100. Working my way back up to that $200 to $300 threshold. So we'll see how it goes.
Are you spreading out I can't remember. Did I set up your ads whenever you joined Dave's program?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yes.
I couldn't remember. Done it 200 plus times.
And we do spread it out. So I use video ads. I use the pictures. I use high quality and low quality, a little bit of both. And we definitely like we try to spread that money out.
Yeah.
But I did realize that the biggest thing is when you're spending more money is okay, there's like thresholds and you have to kind of break through. And so you might see a big jump from $25 to $50 a day, and you might see a big jump from 50 to 100. But from 100 to 150, there might not be much of a difference at all. That
Talking
jump might
about like cost per lead.
no, like amount of leads coming in.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you're in a local market, so it's kind of capped a little bit, right?
Exactly. And
So
so also what I found was that when we made the jump from 100 to 200, there was a difference.
mhm.
And then, and like big, I mean, we were closing probably 15 plus phones a day, every day. Like,
The way I
but
like to look at that, like if somebody's coming to me and they're like, how do I scale? And I'm like, all right, well, like number one, how much capital do you have, right? And the way I like to look at the ad spend is like if you're spending, let's just baseline it at 50. If you know without a shadow of a doubt and you're comfortable in your closing experience that you can make more than $50 a day, spend $50 a day. Like that's
yep,
one phone, right?
yep,
Like, and if you can make more than 100 a day and you know that you can, like you're closing 1 to 2 out of 10 on Facebook or more or better, spend it, right?
mhm.
But also there is a specific way to spend it with Facebook, which you've probably come to realize.
Oh yeah,
If you throw it all in one campaign, Facebook literally just
they'll
eats.
eat it up.
It just
Yep,
spits it out, and there's no receipt.
yep. And we just watched, like you said, we watched just our closing. The more leads you get, you have to keep track of it more. And so we just like I know my VA, I know what he closes, I know how good he is, and I know like if there's leads in, like he's always like, oh, there's no leads today. Like what and I'm like, I'm gonna go do some Facebook marketplace reach outs. But he's a
Yeah.
hungry guy. So he goes and like he closes deals, you know. And he does not let up on it on leads. Like his follow-ups are ridiculous. So, and that's the biggest thing. The more leads that come in, the more management that takes. So there's okay, I can spend even if you have the money, I've got the capital and I'm able to close. Okay, you can close when you have 10 leads a day coming in. How many can you close when you have 40 leads a day coming in? And then not only that, but how much are you leaving on the table?
Yeah.
So if you're not able to sit behind a screen and just close leads all
Yeah.
day long, you're probably not utilizing those because it's like that takes time to sit there and talk to people and then follow up. Sometimes nobody responds, but
Yeah.
when you have people that if everybody starts responding back and then okay, I have to manage all these people and then wait, I've got to go run and get to appointments. Oh shoot, I forgot about the people I was talking to.
Yeah.
It becomes a real big problem.
It's a real
So,
issue, man. Like whenever you close like 5 deals and you're like, oh shit, who was that person? Like that's why
yeah.
like for me, I utilize my software Resell Deck, and I like have to put their name, and then I add some freaking notes next to their name on who they were and what I offered. And then
Mhm.
a cool like the other day, I closed like 3 or 4 in a row. And I do a lot of my stuff through phone calls now, actually.
Yeah.
So because I've noticed it like so I actually did a time audit on myself on how long it actually took to negotiate certain deals. And
Mm.
for one deal, it would take up to like 30 minutes. And I was like, okay, that could have been a 3 to 4 minute phone call. And I would
Yeah.
have knocked it out like that.
Yep.
And I would have hit the level 2 like personal experience being on the phone with them. So nowadays, especially like Facebook and definitely Google, if on Facebook, if I'm getting a lead that's like 13 and newer, right, 13 Pro or something and newer, I'll just ask, be like, "What's your phone number?" And I'll call them
There
and
you go.
knock it out. And with Google, I call all of those now. It's just honestly better because they're looking to sell right away. So it's one of those things. But so I got a question here. So I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but what has been your most successful marketing tactic by far?
My most successful marketing tactic has been Instagram. Um, and not only the Instagram ads, but also like I went and got professional videos done that were super expensive and I ran ads with them. And
Yeah.
then I also posted them on my Instagram for 30 days. So like when people like I was getting stopped by like homeless people at the gas station. They're like,
Oh
"You're
wow.
that phone guy." I'm like, first off, why do you have a phone? Second, it's like, why are you on Instagram? And third, like, what? They're like, yeah, I've seen you before. Like all the time, people will come in here and like, I don't handle like any of the, I don't run any of the, I don't handle any appointments. I don't handle people that come in. So like they deal with Vaughn, but then they'll come in and be like, I recognize you. And I'm like, from where? And then I'm like, oh, I did those videos. That's right.
Yeah,
But
no,
though
I've had
that
that happen.
combination,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, like that combination, like still to this day, because people go to your Instagram or they go to your Facebook page. So like they're not just gonna be in those messages, and I forget
Yeah.
that they do that. So they go and check to see like, oh, is this person real? They're gonna like steal my kidney.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
whenever we
No,
get
yeah.
Google, yeah, whenever I
Audit
get
you.
people to come in, I tell them to leave us a Google review, and I literally just say, okay, let everybody know we didn't kidnap you and steal your kidneys. We gave you some money and sent you on your way.
Isn't that funny though? Like how people like, so I call it like a lot of the regular like lower level phone flippers that are below the 5K mark.
Mm-hmm.
They act almost like the one night stand type flippers is what I call them. Is like
Mm-hmm.
they'll meet up with somebody, they'll just won't talk to the lead, they won't talk to the person, they just do the deal, transact. It's everything is transaction, right? Like with them in the beginning, and that's okay. But like eventually, you got to break out of that, and you actually got to become a human and a business owner, you
Yep.
know. And
Yeah.
that is what changes the business for you. Is like people start referring you, and I'm sure you see this big with Instagram. I don't know if you're doing this, but like with the photos that we take with customers,
Yeah.
or that I take with customers, like one thing I'll do is if they have an Instagram, I'll get their Instagram handle, post it on Instagram, and all of their friends will see that tag and the photo and know that they got cash for their phone. So that's a really good way to get referral, especially if you're utilizing Instagram. I don't know if you remember, I actually learned that in Dave's program from another guy named Eric, and that's all he would do. That was his entire marketing strategy. And I was like, bro, like that is wild, you know?
We're trying to. I'm so bad about it, but like we have great interactions with our people, and I'm so bad about remembering it. I got a GoPro and I started putting it on my head
Yeah,
to record the interactions, and we're gonna make shorts and stuff out of them.
that's
Some of them are
actually a
gonna
good
be boring
idea.
and stuff.
Run it as an ad too.
Yeah, it's true. You could run it as an ad. I didn't even
Here's
think
how
about
the
that.
process works. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
good
And
idea.
look, that person left
Yeah,
alive.
we didn't kidnap him. So another question I got here is, what systems and processes have you put in place that you wish you would have implemented
Hmm. Let's see. Which one do I wish I would have implemented sooner?
Tell you mine, it was negotiation for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go with like my VA. So, which is everybody does it differently. Some people, they close their own leads. Maybe they do. I know some people tried to do some hands-free stuff. Um, Maybe they have a friend do it, or like another, I know you said you're talking about having flippers do it. I hired two VAs when it's been 2 years now, I think. I kept one of them, and that guy makes me so much money and makes my life like most of the most stressful part of this business was making sure that like everything was organized, like my account, like knowing what my points were coming up, making sure that follow-ups were done. And now every single day I wake up, we've got our group chat with my partner Vaughn, myself, and Khalid, and he puts all of our appointments in there, and it's nice and organized, exactly what time it's at, what their name is, if there's a phone number, it's there. What are we buying from them? Well, how is it described? How much we're paying for it, and then boom, 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 all those for the day. If another one gets added, we go back in, boom, boom, readjust it. If follow-ups need to be done, we tell him, hey, follow up with X, Y, and Z person. He goes and does the follow-ups. He lets us know where they're at, how far away they are, all the stuff that like you need to be doing when you're doing this. And that's, to me, it was the part that was stressful. It caused me the most amount of stress, was making sure that all of that stuff was done. Because imagine like you're driving to go pick up a device, and the customer is like, oh, yeah, we're running 20 minutes late.
I
And
hate that.
you know what I mean? Sit around, whatever. That stuff happens. And sometimes sometimes they did give you enough time, but you just didn't see the message.
Yeah.
Because you were doing whatever else.
Yep.
So
Yep,
that
true.
for me was a huge, and then getting a location. That I wish I would have done sooner, even if it was just a cheap place to rent and sit at and do my work at, and meet up my people. I used to do it at a coffee shop. When you told me to stop driving around, and I didn't want to, because I was like, well, yeah, but I'm going to get less deals. And then I just went on the street.
Let's
That's
talk
what I
about
thought. I
that
was like, I'm
real
gonna get
quick.
less deals. I'm not gonna.
Let's talk about
Yes.
coffee shop days, dude. So I'm assuming, so there's something that I call lineups whenever you start doing.
Mhm.
Did that ever happen for you?
Oh yeah, I would. That's what I would do every day. I would line them up. I would literally just be like, for the next day, I would just be like, hey, I'm gonna meet here. Whoever was the first appointment, I would try to get everybody else to do about the same time.
Yeah,
And for the most part, I'd get most of them would be in that time frame. I'd get most of them there, and then maybe I'd have to, come back later in the day for like the last
yeah,
one.
yeah.
But I lived super close, so I lived a mile and a half down the street. So I'd just go home, hang out, do whatever I needed to do, and then come back later if I needed to. But and I will tell you this: every time I was tempted to leave and drive, and I did leave my coffee shop, something bad ended up happening, and it never worked out. So I just stopped. I'm like, I'm not driving anybody
Yeah,
anywhere.
the no shows hit harder whenever you start doing like. So I actually drove to a lead for the first time in a while, a couple of days ago, and they no showed me, and that hasn't happened in a long time.
Rookie
Uh,
mistake, Chris.
and I was just like, screw this, man. Like it was like a 45-minute drive, and I'm like, I broke my own rule, and
Yeah.
I got bit for it basically, and so yeah, I mean, like for the one man show type of flipper, the solo flipper, like that is the move, in my opinion. Like if you can
Yep.
get to the point where your negotiation skills are good enough to be able to do that, that is a really good place to be until you're able to take it. So I usually recommend hiring around 10,000 in profit, like hire a negotiator or somebody to handle sales. Like that's kind of the recommendation on my side of things. But like the main people we help are those one man show type flippers and help them get to 10, 15K a month. And that is one of the best things that you can do is start lining people up all at the same time. And it makes you look really freaking good as well. Like if you got 4 or 5 people meeting you at one time, you're the man, dude. Like
Yep.
he's passing out money to everybody. And then let me know if this happened to you. Was there other people in that Starbucks that came up and be like, what do you do? Like, what are you doing? Did that ever happen?
So we would get, I think I had one person, I did had one person that like one or two people that ended up like grabbing a card from me and like selling me something down the road. Not a lot, but what I did have at the coffee shop was all of the like everybody there knew who I was and
Yeah.
like treated me really, really well.
Yeah.
And so it's nice when you have a place like they would always be like, oh, what do you do? Like blah blah blah, like talk to you, whatever. And like they'd always know what I was gonna order, whatever else. Like I remember one time I had a lady that freaked out and like threatened to pull a gun on me or something. And I was just like, oh God, I felt so bad. So I just brought them a bunch of donuts the next day and they were like, oh, you didn't have to do that. We didn't care. And I was like, I mean, I appreciate it. So but yeah, that's a great, I'm sure that does happen more
It
often
does,
than not.
yeah. Dude, so actually a couple of months ago, one of my repeat customers called Starbucks and they were like, "Hey, is Chris the phone guy there?" And like I was there because it was my scheduled
That's
meetup time, and the barista was like, "Hey, Chris, there's somebody on the phone for you," and I'm like, "Oh my god, not!" And this is like the third time it's happened, by the way.
Chris, the phone flipper there.
Yeah, Chris is the phone dude there, and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so sorry. Like they have my number. They and it was just one of those things. And that's happened 3 times at this point. It happened twice in Beaumont, and then
Oh, that's like a
and
wow.
but like once you're getting good and that stuff starts to happen, like you're in a good place normally, because repeat customers are coming, and that's the game right there. But
Absolutely.
so you started this a while back. I know you were doing Facebook Marketplace and everything before you started doing the ads. But like I have a question on advice for others. Like if you were to look back and tell yourself 5 years ago exactly what to do, what advice would you give someone who's just starting out and wants to take their flipping side hustle to the next level? So they're the person that's running around town all day long, running ragged, wheels are falling off their cars type of stuff. Like, what would you tell that person to do to get to the next level?
I'd tell them to do what I'm doing now after almost 4 years, which is writing down all of your processes. And I think a big issue, like we're getting ready to start a trucking company in January, February, in 6 months from now, whenever that is. And one of the things that I realized was like, if I want to have more than one business, I need to have every single thing that we do in a day, in a month, in a year, written down. So if anybody has questions down the road, you think right now you may never have employees, but and I tell guys now, I'm like, get the 10 grand, see how you feel about the industry.
Once you get 10 grand,
different game. You may not want to go beyond that. You can do that one-man army all day long. You may not want to go beyond that. You may not want to ever have employees. Who knows? For me, I always wanted to have other businesses and stuff. So I knew that I was going to want to grow this to a point where I could learn how to structure businesses. So I would say put your processes down, get some white sheets of paper, do a rough draft, sit there and put down, what is my process for dealing with leads and like generating leads and closing deals? Write all that stuff down, every single detail that you can remember, and then go over and say, okay, well, now picking up my devices and putting them in inventory, what is that process like? Okay, getting them from inventory into buyers' hands, what does that look like? All right, what does it look like when I'm shipping? Okay, what does it look like? Every single detail, what needs to be done and what you do. That way, if you decide down the road you want to bring somebody on, your stuff is very well organized and you're very structured. And all you have to do is say, follow this book.
Yep.
Or videos, or however you want to put it out there. Now there's all these AI generated ones you can basically just type the stuff in there and it'll write everything for you and create like basically an employee handbook. Yep. But put that together, because then if you have an employee that comes in, plug and play, plug them in, let them run. You just help them, go through the process. If they have questions, they go back to the handbook. Then if you want to bring in an investor down the road,
yep,
you're not like, oh, well, this is kind of what we do every day. You're just like, yep, this is how everything runs. It runs smooth as day. All you got to do is plug in more money and it goes to the outlets. Money flows another one. Put your processes for your money flow through. All that. And and you can do that while you're learning it, because the truth is that it takes you time to figure out how you're going to do things, and things might change down the road. But if you have it all written down, you can just go in and be like, well, that didn't work. Let me adjust it. So I would really have write all that stuff down. And then the second most important thing is figure out exactly what you want for this business and exactly what you want for your life.
Yeah. Plan it out, the big picture, and then, go to the small picture. One thing I like to do when it comes to systems and processes nowadays, and you guys probably see me pump out a ton of content. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I have a system and a process for doing it. So one thing I like to do, and so I'll make a video. So a lot of times I'll make a rough draft video, and you guys can do this whenever you're creating stuff too. Is make out a video and just say everything at once, and this is my process. This is what I do. And taping yourself actually doing the process is a good way to do this too. But for me, I like to use my whiteboard a lot to actually visualize a lot of things. And I know a lot of people on my channel love that because it's a very good visualization. But what I'll do after that is I will actually take the transcript of that video and I will put it in ChatGPT and I will say, make this a systems and operations manual. And I will edit it as needed. The massive cheat code to
how much time you could have just saved me. I'm sitting here writing everything down. I hate writing. My brain freaking fries.
Yeah.
That's a way better idea.
I use dictation so much, it's ridiculous. So I'll go to my notes app and so if I'm trying to write an ad copy or something like that, I will literally just say it. And then I will plug it into AI and be like, now rewrite it, make it sound human, and give me 5 different variations. And it does it, and it's great. So yeah, so that's awesome, dude. I love that. And write everything down, guys. Remember that, especially even in the early phases, because as you move away from the early phases, you will forget, and that stuff will become day to day, just mundane stuff that you do. I get asked all the time really simple questions about my daily process on what I do, And like for me, it's just part of my process daily. It's nothing new. But to some other people, it's like mind blowing,
Right.
like that I do that. And I'm just like, dude, what do you talk like? This is something I do every like 20 reach outs a day. Like that's the thing in our recelerator programs. Like that's you have to do that minimum. How do I bang out 20 reach outs a day? Dude, I just have it preset in Marketplace and I just bing, 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 bing. Like it's like a shotgun and I get it done in 5 minutes. And then, my script for that is, hey, we run a business that buys MacBooks, iPads, smartwatches, iPhones, blah, 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 blah. If I were to pay cash today, would you go any lower? I send that out 20 times in 5 minutes. And I only respond to the people that respond to it.
Yeah.
Like I don't spend time actually looking at the description, I just shotgun everything out and then deal with the negotiation afterwards. And it saves me a crap load of time. And I know for a lot of people that have watched my videos, they've implemented that and it's worked really well for them.
I'm going to now.
So, I mean, that's part of the game, dude. It's like, for example, whenever Matt came to me and he started showing me the reach outs and everything because I paid him for a consultant and everything. And I was like, the way he did it, he calls it his 3 ping method, where you send 3 messages right away, but he kind of snipes deals in a way. Like he has a process for sniping really good deals and he makes insane ROI. His average ROI per device last year was, I think, 72%. Wild. Yeah. Only game consoles. Crazy.
Jeez,
But
bro.
I was doing it and I was like, okay, I hate sending 3 messages to one person every single time. I can't stand it. Like, so for me, it was like, all right, how can I make this easier? How can I make this better? And so I did. I just shotgun the same message to everybody. And I'm very upfront about my business model with everybody. And like, I'll even tell my customers how much I'm making. Like, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
And they're cool with that. Like, and do you do the same thing? I'm sure you do.
I will if they're like, oh, you're gonna make X amount more. I'm like, nope, actually, this is what we're gonna sell it for, and this is
Yep.
what I sell it for. This is what I make, and I'm fine with that.
For those of you guys out there that don't think we do that and don't think we run an honest business,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what we do. I tell every single customer if they ask, I aim to make $80 in profit per device that I buy.
Yep.
That is my goal, especially locally, right? So be honest with your customers. They'll come back more often. Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
So I got a couple questions left, but how do you deal with slow periods, dude? What do you do during the slow times?
I just hang out, dude, to be honest. I think because we know what we need to do to be successful every day. And so if we're doing it, I used to freak out and be like, what do I need to do? What do I
Yeah.
need to change? What do I need to upgrade? And I'm like, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just got to wait. Sometimes you're doing the right things and it's just a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And you'll
True.
start to, yeah, sometimes you just need a little bit of time. And then next thing you know, it's booming. And like my VA, I tell him all the time, he's like, he'd be like, "Oh, it's slow right now." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, this is this time of year. You know this. You've been swimming for 2 years. Come on, it's the same thing." And I let anybody know, like, it's slow, whatever. So what? It's always slow at some point, and then it's always fast at some point. It and I had a friend tell me this recently too. He's like, I would only get concerned if it was slow for like 3 months. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's true.
And
Yeah.
maybe there's something wrong. And
Like
not to
by
say
the
that you
quarter.
check yourself. You're right. Not to say that you don't check yourself. I always check myself. I
Yeah.
check myself and see like, okay, well, am I not doing what I normally am doing? But I'm like, we do the same thing every day.
Yep.
It's like we run our ads, we do our reach outs, we do our stuff. Like I don't have to worry about those things too much. I know there are aspects of my business that we are scaling up and I will make more when those things occur, but it's a process. And so it takes time. And I think that's a big thing. People freak out, especially if you're spending money on ads. I get it. You're watching like that's $25 a day or
Yeah.
$50 a day. Like, yeah, whatever. Even if I had 2 days with no devices, which doesn't ever happen, but if I had 2 days with no devices, well, then okay. But then I get the third day and I have 5 devices come in and boom, I just made my entire week's, ad spend or whatever. So, yeah, we just chill out. And honestly, like I will take that time to check in on maybe like old connections
Yep.
that I don't have anymore. I always say it's like, it's really never, we have so many different avenues for devices like that. It's almost like never,
Hard to be slow. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it might be slower than it was at a different time, but we've always have something coming in every single day, you
Yeah,
know? And I realized like also the more that you buy, the less dead leads you have.
it's true. Yeah,
So we started just buying more stuff. I get different buyers. Like we started selling to China, and there's items that they buy that I'm like, we never even bought these, but they buy them, and these prices are really good. So I'm like, well, we'll buy them too. So I always am just trying to expand like my phone flipping portfolio, you could
yeah,
say.
right. There you go. I love that. No, I think that that's a big part of this business, and like I don't know what you're scaled back up to now. What do you do? Like, what is the monthly right now? If you, I mean, if you don't want to share.
Our last 2 months, hold on, what is so June and July. I haven't checked August numbers. June and July, we did about 25,000 gross profit, I think.
Nice.
Um, and I think we probably did about 200 to a quarter million in revenue.
Yeah,
Um, and August, I have to check our numbers still, but it was close to the same.
nice.
So yeah, we're still working our way back up, but
Heck yeah, dude. Well, I mean, so I want to go back here real quick to the slow parts real fast. Um, so one thing I've noticed being in number one, the phone flipping space, and then like the coaching space and the marketing space and all of that is slow times are inevitable. You got to live by the quarter and track your freaking numbers because if you've been doing this for any amount of time and you've been tracking that entire time, you can just look back to the previous year and be like, oh, yeah, it was slow that time too. Okay. So nothing's wrong here,
yep.
It's just like that's just the time of the year. All right, cool. And because a lot of people just freak out, and they'll like blow up their business a lot of times and shut off their ads and like
Yep.
all of this crazy stuff because they didn't make $1,000 this week, and they'll just like burn their business to the ground.
Yep.
And like I've seen it happen many, many times. But like once you actually start tracking those numbers and you have like a spreadsheet and stuff put together, you can just start realizing like, oh wow, okay, it's not me. It's just the time, and that's fine. Um, so like example, from February to like around now, actually, they're the slowest parts of the year
Yep.
by far. And like
Yeah.
I had one of my students reach out and he's like, dude, I can't seem to break 6 grand a month. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're doing 6 grand right now, that means you're probably gonna do 12 coming
Yeah.
up in the holidays
It's coming.
easily. Like, trust me, dude. It's like if
Wait.
you're doing 6 grand a month in profit right now, and you're struggling a little bit, but you're still doing well, relatively well for somebody who's still working a full-time job. Like, I'm like, dude, you're gonna crush it in September ish after the Apple launch through February. Like, just go ham, crank your ads up, do all the stuff, and you'll be fine. Like, it's funny to me. Like, I can calm these guys down pretty quickly because they just it's just like what I said. They don't know what a slow time looks like yet. And I remember Dave always said, he's like, just do the same stuff every single day and like just keep letting it build up, right? Like if you're not closing deals, just keep making offers and keep making offers. And like, even if you're closing nothing, because
Yep.
what'll happen is, how it is, like that a Saturday will hit and
Yep.
people still haven't sold their device. And then they'll be like, hey, you still willing to do blank
Extra
for
price. Yeah.
that item? And you'll get hit with like 10 of them in the
Yep.
same day. And that's what we call the wave. And it's a real thing, but you have to be around long enough and you have to do
Yep.
enough to make that wave happen.
Yeah. Think of it like a multi-year thing. It's like I always say, like I try to make my slow year, I try to see how I can improve my slow time of the year. So
Yeah.
that's like my base. Like, or I'm just like, okay, like I want my average profit. Like last year, our average was 30,000. I had 42,000. I had as low as 20,000. So I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty damn good. I'm like, so this year, I'm like, how can I make my lowest month 30 and my highest month's 50 or whatever, like make it a game, like work on like every year. It's like, okay, I'm going to make my lowest months better, raise that ground floor up. Like we do bare minimum, we do this much now. Bare minimum, we do this much now. Because those highs, they don't always last.
They
And
don't.
as the other aspect is like, I made mistakes that I made very early on was like every month's just gonna keep getting
Yeah. Lifestyle inflation, baby.
yeah, and so I screwed myself. I mean, blowing
Yeah.
money, thinking like, well, we're living good, but I'm like, you
Yep.
need to stash up, live as like we just cut our overhead down hard, and I'm just like, and I'm like, it's still too high. I'm
Yeah.
like, how can I cut more? If I honestly, genuinely speaking, if I could not take a salary right now, like if I could take no money right now, I would. I would not take a dime. Like I would just take what I needed to survive, which I kind of am, but I mean, like I need more than I want to be able to take.
Yeah, of course.
So like I tell people, like, dude, and this comes back to the whole point of like, what do you want for your life and what do you want for this business? Because you need to think about long picture, especially if you've never made 6 grand or 10 grand or 15 grand a month. I was doing numbers in this business by myself that I had never seen before.
Yeah,
And
same. And I screwed myself too, like multiple times. Like, so, I did my first $10,000 month in flipping, and then I thought I was hot shit after that. Like I was like, this will keep happening forever, and it was in December.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah, you're like,
so,
peak time.
um, so I upgraded apartment. I bought a new car. I did all of the stuff because
It's
I
the
thought,
main thing.
yeah, I was like, this is how it's gonna be forever,
Yep.
and
It can
and
only
then
go
it was
up from here.
right, and then March hit, and it was not happening, and it was back to the struggle bus, you know,
Yep.
and like that happens in a lot of industries, like marketing, for example, it happened the same way. In that one, I figured out how aggressively markets affect marketing.
Mm,
Like whenever COVID happened, I lost 6 grand like in monthly recurring revenue in a week, and I was like, yeah, dude, it was a thing. I was like, damn, because everybody cut their marketing altogether. What was great about that though was, I mean, COVID in itself wasn't great, but like I learned through that experience that reselling can thrive in any market.
oh yeah.
All to like 2020, 2021, I learned very quickly that internet-based businesses will die very fast when
Mhm.
a global something happens. But like the reselling game, it actually gets better. Like because
Mm,
people need money more than ever,
yeah. I
and
know. I wish I was phone flipping during COVID, dude.
it
I
was
was
it was fun. Like
woodworker.
like people were scared to meet, but they were like, I need money. Like I need to buy food, you know?
Yeah.
And like you could just lowball everybody and people were still buying on eBay because that was part of their business. And
Mhm.
it was a thing. But let me ask you these like last 3 questions and then we'll wrap this thing up. It'll be around an hour. So what motivates you to keep growing your business? Is it financial freedom, the thrill of the flip, or something else?
Oh, you broke up just a little bit. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, yeah. What motivates you to keep growing your business?
Ooh. Honestly, it's giving to others. I
Nice.
I I have things that I want to do with my business. Like I have an amount in my mind of what I want to make by the time I'm 40 years old, let's say. And I know what that number is. And I literally was just making a video this morning and I was talking about how anything that I touch moving forward, it's all about how beneficial can this be to other people. Like when we want my buddy and I want to start this trucking business, I'm like, all right, well, like I want to make sure that we can do this amount because I want our drivers to make X amount. The drivers need to have insurance. Like I want to make sure that everybody's taken care of well. I do the same thing in this industry. I talk to my guys and I'm like, look, when we can get to here and when I get this stuff structured, like I want to be able we'll be able to afford to pay you this. Like, if you can do X, Y, and Z things for us and like you can learn these things, we'll be able to give you the raises, like whatever. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to run a business, if it's just for you, that's fine. But if you're going to run a business and you're involving other people, right? My guys give a lot to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not working for 8-hour days. Sometimes they're working 10 or 12-hour days, And so it's like, I got to make sure like you guys are giving me and allowing me to grow. So I need to make sure that I give back to you. And that's the way that I view business. So I have my desires for myself and for my family. But ultimately I think what drives me the most is knowing that like I think it'd be badass to be able to pay my employees like super well. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that's being a successful business owner. I'm like, if
I
everybody
remember,
gets health insurance and I can give you guys, like, if we can go out for nice dinners and like we can do, like, to me, that is winning.
yeah.
So, and there's sacrifice that's required in that, 100%.
I remember Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, right? He would drive out of the Apple headquarters, and there would be this big, and he talked about it all the time too. I've listened to a couple of his stuff on podcasts, and there was a big neighborhood right outside of the Apple headquarters, filled $1 million homes, and almost all of them were Apple employees. And he said that's what he was most proud of, was that right there, was how much of an impact he had made for those people. So that's big, dude. I love that. So how has phone flipping impacted your life personally?
Well, it's changed my life completely. I mean, it completely changed my life in a lot of ways, like a lot of ways. Phone flipping for me was the first thing outside of my professional swimming career that gave me joy again, and that I like enjoyed and had a passion in. So when it started to become very successful, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I found the
Yeah,
thing for me.
man, I went through that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, this is it. Like, I found my thing. And what I realized through that is I was like, oh, I actually just like being an entrepreneur. Like, when I started learning more about business, I'm like, oh, I actually just like business in general. And I was like, man, actually, when I look back at my childhood, I'm like, this makes a lot of sense now. I'm like, I remember one time shaking out the Buckeyes in my Buckeye tree, and we lived in Ohio. And I was like, I could sell these for 50 cents a piece. Nobody would pay 50 cents a piece for those, but this is my child brain. I could sell these for 50 cents a piece. And I count them up and I was like, I would make $1,000. And I was just like, this is, not a great business model, but, like,
Yeah.
but the idea is there. And that's what gets you started, is your brain starts moving and you start seeing pieces and you start making the pieces fit together. It
Oh, cut out.